Welcome.
Hello.
Потом можно будет студию посмотреть. Все ли это пресса?
I'll be at the back here.
All right. Whoops.
Yes.
Excuse me. Got it. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
You're going to translate. Okay.
For those who
I do talk a lot.
please talk. So that
If I'm talking too fast or too much, you tell me. I do talk a lot. Once I get going, I can't stop.
hopefully everyone
Okay. I hope so.
Хорошо, друзья, мы начинаем нашу пресс-конференцию. Вопросы можно задать любые, по съемке нет ограничений. Пожалуйста, можем приступать. Ну, наверное, первый вопрос, да, по традиции будет как перелет, как в Москве себя ощущает музыкант.
We didn't fly. We came on a tour bus from Finland.
Они приехали из Финляндии на автобусе, наверное, многие знают.
Can we shut that door? Or is everyone
Yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Еще вопрос?
Да, конечно. Если кто-то может задавать по-английски, пожалуйста,
Не, я
задавайте. А вот
лучше
кому нужна помощь, соответственно, я не профессиональный переводчик, но я помогу.
Ну, давайте помогайте.
Да.
Роман, руководитель гитарной школы Игоря Сандера. Как за границей начинается увлечение гитарной музыкой? Потому что у нас долго был железный занавес, и даже 10-15 лет назад было сложно купить инструмент. А как люди к этому приходят не в России?
Ага. Roman would like to know how did people in the West turn to guitar music, because 15 years ago, probably a couple of decades ago, it was hard to get into this kind of music, into playing. So what is the process in the West?
The process of getting into playing in rock bands and stuff?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think these days it's easier than ever, you know, because you have so much high-quality professional home studio equipment. You know, you can record music to a very high standard at home for a relatively small amount of money. The problem is the market. Does the market still exist for rock music? I don't know about here in Russia, but in the UK, if you're a new rock band now, you're very much going to be an underground band. There is very little what I would call rock music in the mainstream in the UK these days. There's like Foo Fighters, that's it. Mainstream rock, that's it. Everyone else is like what you call an underground band now, which is fine because it means the music is kind of liberated to be more experimental, more ambitious, less commercial, but it's also frustrating to be so marginalized by the mainstream.
Вам нужно перевести? Или
Ну,
вы
я, в
поняли?
принципе, понял. Еще один вопрос. Какая была первая гитара и какие исполнители повлияли, какие артисты, какие музыканты на творчество?
What was your first guitar, and what musicians inspired you in the beginning of your journey?
My first guitar, when I was about 6 years old, my parents forced me to learn guitar with a kind of nylon string classical guitar, and I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated it. And the guitar, after about 6 weeks, they gave up, and the guitar went into the attic in the house. What actually originally inspired me eventually to take an interest in music was not musicians, it was more the idea of being a producer. So I was always more interested in being able to make these kind of cinematic experiences for the ears. So the kind of people that really inspired me, people like Frank Zappa, David Bowie, Roger Waters, Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra, more the guys that had a kind of vision. I was never particularly interested in being a guitar hero. I was always more interested in the people that had the ideas and the visions, you know.
И еще один последний. Кем вы себя больше ощущаете? Продюсером, музыкантом или артистом? Или есть ли в этом разница какая-то?
When I think about yourself, are you more a producer, an artist, a musician, and whether it matters? Is there a difference?
It probably doesn't matter, but I mean, I would describe myself as a producer-writer, not a musician. I mean, I have fantastic musicians in my band that are way better than me, which is fine because I'm not interested in being, you know, a guitar hero or a great singer. But what I like to be able to do is order everyone around, you know. You do that, you do this, you do that. So that's the kind of privilege of the guy that writes the songs and the guy that produces the record. So I would describe myself producer-writer.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Можно, да, вопрос задавать?
Давайте.
Да, конечно.
Да, задавайте.
My name is Lorna.
Hi.
Hi. Well, talking about David Bowie, you just mentioned him. I know that you include in your set list the song Space Oddity.
Right.
Song.
Right.
Well, actually, the question is, what are your feelings about the loss of David Bowie for the world? And will we hear, I don't know, several cover songs and recordings from you?
Of Bowie?
Yeah.
No, I think it's not the sort of thing I think I would record and release, but it's a nice thing to do as part of the show. To answer the first part of your question, my feelings about Bowie, I mean, I felt it very strongly, and you know, when you look at the last 6 months and you look at all the bad stuff that's happened in the rock world, whether it was the shootings at the Bataclan in Paris or the death of people like Lemmy and Bowie, and there's been other people that have passed away in the last. It's not been the greatest time, but for me personally, the Bowie thing was the most shocking. And I think one of the reasons I felt it so strongly is that for me, David Bowie is symbolic somehow of the golden age of pop and rock music, which has passed, and there's no getting away from the fact that there will never be another time in rock and pop music the way things were in the 60s, 70s, and to an extent the 80s. And here's a guy that presided over all of that era, and in many ways is, you know, what the Beatles were to the 60s, Bowie was to the 70s. And for me, the 70s is the golden era of experimental rock music, by which I mean the album was more important than the 3-minute pop song. That artists were actually encouraged to be ambitious, to think outside the box, not to be generic, not to just write, you know, cute pop songs. And I think that era has passed, unfortunately. And so for me, when someone like David Bowie dies, it's almost like that's like a symbolic closing of a chapter, and that's very sad to me because I mean that's from a musical perspective. That's what I love. I love that era of rock music. I love the album. I'm not so interested in pop videos and singles. I love the idea of the album as a kind of cinematic experience. And here's a guy that kind of, perhaps more than anyone, you know, revolutionized that idea of pop being something that could be as intellectual and as serious as cinema, literature, painting. So I felt it I was really shocked. I was really shocked. Much more than I would have expected to have been, actually.
My other question was about the new B for the pop.
Yeah.
What was the process of elimination? I mean, I think you have lots and lots and lots of recordings that aren't included in the albums.
Right.
So what was the process of elimination one songs, and which one did you choose?
I think
Was there some kind of concept behind it?
the simple answer to that question is these are songs that I thought were as good as all the other songs that I'd written for the albums, but they just didn't fit conceptually. So I have this thing where every time I make an album, I have this kind of story or this grand concept, whether it's the Hand Can I Raise concept or the concept of the previous album, which was about ghost stories. But there are always songs which don't fit in conceptually, even though I think they're good songs and I'm really proud of them. So these are what you might call the orphan songs. They're the songs that I was as proud of as any of the others, but they just lyrically, conceptually, they just didn't fit. So the answer to your question is no, there is no, on this particular EP, there is no thing that kind of unifies all of the songs, which in itself is a concept, you know. These are all the songs that were left over.
Thank you.
Okay.
Можно, да? Владимир, журнал «Рок». Вопрос в следующем. Есть ли какие-то конкретные планы, ну скажем, на ближайшие года два, по реализации одного из многочисленных проектов, которые сильно очень много? И нет ли у него планов поработать с каким-либо музыкантом, с кем он не сотрудничал до того?
That's Vladimir from New York, and he would like to know what are your plans for the next couple of years, and whether you plan to work with some musicians who you never worked before.
I don't have any plans right now. I mean, I love to change. The thing is about being a musician is that you're always the same. And one of the ways you keep evolving as an artist is by changing the people around you. That's one of the things Bowie was really good at, always changing the collaborators. So I think the answer to your question is I don't have any plans, but I definitely want to do something different every time I do a new album. I'm looking to do something which interests me, excites me, feels like an evolution. And part of that is working with different players and different musicians. I can't tell you who right now, because I haven't written any songs. And I think part of it is when you write the songs, certain musical sounds or musical approaches suggest themselves, and that's when I start thinking about who I might want to work with.
Можно, да?
Да.
Ткаченко Андрей, директор детских групп музыкальных. У меня такой вопрос. Что можете посоветовать для молодых исполнителей, как для музыкантов, так и для продюсеров, с своей точки зрения? С чего начинать?
What could you tell young musicians and producers? How should they start their careers? What should they do in the beginning? What are the basic and most important steps?
Okay, there's a really important question that I would ask. You use the word, I guess they generally use the word career, right? For me, there's a very big difference between starting out as a musician that wants to express themselves creatively and someone who wants to have a career in the music industry. Because I think to have a career in the music industry now is almost impossible. Almost impossible. And I say that from the perspective of being a musician who has some kind of vocation to be creative. If you want to be an entertainer, that's a different thing. If you want to be an entertainer and just give people what they want, make something very generic, very formulaic, go on X Factor, go on whatever it is, to me that's not really the music industry, that's the entertainment industry. That's an industry about being generic, about doing what the industry wants you to do. That's not what being a musician is about for me. Being a musician for me is about responding to some kind of creative calling within you. And my advice is always, if anyone asks me, I said, do it because you love it. Don't even think about having a career. If you get a career, like I have a career almost by accident. I'm one of the lucky ones because I've never compromised. I've never done anything that I didn't want to do. And luckily for me, partly because I started 20 years ago and I think it was still just about possible then, I've been very lucky. I have a career doing what I want. I'm not a mainstream artist. Most people you ask on the street would never have heard of me. But I have enough fans that I can do it, make a living from it, without having to compromise. Now, I don't know if you can do that. Maybe there's still some people that do that and manage to find a career out of it. But that word worries me, career, that word worries me, because that implies all sorts of compromises in order to get, do you know what I mean?
И какие музыкальные коллективы в России можете выделить?
Do you know any Russian bands? Do you like any? If you do.
I'm thinking if I do know any Russian bands. I don't think so. I don't think I do, no. Who might I know?
Может быть, вы подскажете, кого Стивен не знает
I am
из
the
русских
morning.
исполнителей?
I am the morning, I think.
Oh,
Guys from Porcupine Tree are working with them.
I've heard, yes, I haven't heard them, but I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because they're on the same label as...
Yeah. Well, that's about it.
That's it? Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know.
show you.
Учится, он, наверное, знает, но она не поет.
Можно задать вопрос?
Да, конечно.
Что вами движет, когда вы перерабатываете свои старые песни? Например, Don't Hate Me с последнего альбома.
So, what is the driving force behind reworking some of your old stuff, like the new version of Don't Hate Me?
I mean, there's no great master plan. I just, when I go out on tour now, I like to play some of my older material. And, I have I had 20 years worth of songs, And some people say to me, oh, you're playing that old Porcupine Tree song. I say, no, I'm not. I'm playing that old Stephen Wilson song. You know what I mean? It just happens that Porcupine Tree were the band that recorded the first version. But I think a lot of these songs are, to me, they still seem very relevant. And I'm picking songs that mean something to me. I'm not saying to myself, which songs would the fans like to hear? Like yesterday in St. Petersburg, everyone was shouting out for the song Trains. I'm not interested in playing that song, but I'm playing what you might call more deep cuts, as the Americans would call it, obscure album song, which are personal favourites of mine, and which I guess I feel have still got some relevance. There's one song on 4.5 called Don't Hate Me, which actually I wrote in 1998, and lyrically it connects very, very well to the Hand Cannot Erase album, because it's a song about the loneliness of living in the heart of a city, which is exactly what Hand Cannot Erase is about. So there are certain songs that still seem to me very current and very relevant, and my band interpret them in a very different way. So, yeah.
Лилия, рок-портал «Эквилибриум», в тему как раз вопроса к популярности. Вы получили множество наград, были номинированы на Грэмми. Как вы вообще относитесь к этому и как относитесь к успеху последнего 5-го альбома?
What do you think about awards, and does the success of your latest album matter? What do you think about it?
What do I think about awards? They're fun, but they're ridiculous. The idea that music is some kind of Olympic sport is, of course, absolutely absurd. But I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't fun to receive some kind of award or accolade. Of course it's fun, but I think I also acknowledge to myself that it is ridiculous. The idea that you can be the best album, the best artist, it's of course a purely subjective thing. And very often, a lot of these awards, it comes down to who's got the most fans. The best example I can give you of that, there was a poll about 5 years ago for the best drummer in the world, and I've forgotten his name, but the drummer from Slipknot won it. I'm sorry, he's not the best drummer in the world. He's got the most fans, so they voted for him. So I think that kind of, in a way, illustrates the absurdity slightly of it. But it's fun. And one of the things about awards is at least it gets people talking. It's like best album of the year, and then if that's kind of announced in the press, you see all the fans start to argue. That no, that was not. This is the best album of the year. No, this, and people get introduced to music that way. So I think in that sense, to see my name at the top of a poll is great, because people might say, oh, I've never heard Stephen Wilson, but he's, I should go and check that out. So in a way, it becomes another form of promoting what you do, but it is ridiculous, yeah. and fun.
Какой-нибудь еще вопрос?
Да, можно.
О,
Раньше вы говорили, что не очень любите ощущать, быть фронтменом. В последнее время, по-моему, ситуация изменилась, судя по вашему интервью. Что на это повлияло? Может быть, сольная карьера вас раскрепостила или какая-то еще причина?
You used to say that you don't really like to be the leader of the band, the frontman on stage, and the situation has apparently changed.
Yes.
Why has it?
Well, many reasons really. Just one, I think, confidence, increasing in confidence over the years, becoming more confident as a frontman. I think also now, because I am a solo artist, I'm able to control everything. So I'm basically standing in the middle of a circus of my own creation. Everything from the visuals to the band to the choice of material. And when I was in a band before, there was always an element of politics. So you don't get to do everything you want to do. And I think nowadays, because I feel like everything as part of the show, the records, is exactly how I want it, that's given me a lot more confidence to be the director, standing up there.
Образ женщины, историю которой вы рассказываете в последнем альбоме, это образ собирательный или это реально существующий человек? Может быть, это истории реально рассказанных людей собраны?
Ну, вообще, там в основе реальная история.
Реально.
Хотите послушать конкретно?
Нет, в принципе.
Well, that was the question about your latest album and who the protagonist is, whether it is a real story or general person living in a city.
It's kind of both, because it was based on a real story, and it was based on a story of a woman called Joyce Carol Vincent. And Joyce Carol Vincent was a young woman who was found dead in her apartment in North London, and her body had been there for 3 years, undiscovered. And that in itself is really shocking, and that was very shocking to me when I heard that story. That was in the BBC like 10 years ago. And I think I forgot about it for a long time, and then there was a British filmmaker called Carol Morley who made a documentary about Joyce Carol Vincent called Dreams of a Life. And I saw that, and it made me understand something very powerful about this story, which is that this was not, as I think you might assume, this was not a lonely little old lady living with her cats. She was the opposite. She was a young, attractive, popular woman, and yet she was not missed by her friends or family for 3 years. And I started to think, how is that possible? And the more I thought about it, the more I understood, absolutely, that is possible. In the 21st century, in these sprawling cities like Moscow, London, I can totally understand how something like that can happen. We live in a digital world, we live in the world of social networking, we live in a world where information is, we're bombarded by information all the time. Life has become very stressful, very fast, everything is distracting us, from our mobile phones to our computers to television. And so I understood that this is something that is going to probably become more and more common. And I wanted to write about a character like that, but I didn't want to write about Joyce Carol Vincent, so I kind of used her as the basis for a fictional character, into which, of course, I put a lot of myself. I think every writer ultimately ends up, you donate your own life to your characters, and so my character has elements of Joyce Carol Vincent, but is essentially another aspect of me, and my concerns and my fears and all that stuff.
Maybe to prolong this question, what kind of stories inspires you? Because I remember vaguely that Porcupine Tree already had some kind of story about guys who committed suicide, I think, once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, way out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No,
No.
not way out of here. Something about Earth. Last.
Oh, Last Chance to. Well, Last Chance to. That was a song about a religious cult where they all committed suicide.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I
What
think.
what kind of stories inspire you? I mean, I just remember two of them, just on the tip of my mind.
Well, the simple answer is I don't know until it inspires me. You know, I can't tell you what is going to, you know, just like you can't predict what song is going to, you know, appeal to you or what movie is. There are certain things that just, I guess, just click with me. I guess if I sat down and analysed, there might be some commonality to why. I think there's always something to do with mortality in everything I write about. I mean, you mentioned, you know, suicide, and then Hand Cannot Erase about the woman that died, and then the previous album was all supernatural stories about ghosts, and that in itself, of course, is, I mean, I've always seen ghosts as a kind of manifestation of our own fear of mortality and our own fear of death. So I think there is something about my interest in mortality, about the idea of dying without having found the right relationship, found the right job, found happiness. And I think that for me is the most tragic thing of all, if you live a life just of regret. And Joyce Carol Vincent, I guess, was another example of a young woman who clearly never found herself and found a way to interface with the planet that she was a part of. That, for me, there's something incredibly sad about that. There's a real pathos about that. And I think that applies to anything. People who find religious cults, it's all a way of escaping from doing what they should do with the gift of life. At least that seems to... I'm not religious. I think religion is unfortunately for me, it's one of the prime ways that people are distracted from making the most of the gift of life. You know, it's like an excuse not to live your life. So I think if you were to analyse everything I've written about, that might be the common thing at the core of everything.
Еще вопросы? Нет, все?
Может быть, завершающий вопрос.
Точно.
Стандартный, но тем не менее, что вы ждете от сегодняшнего концерта?
Завтра.
О, завтрашнего, да, прошу прощения.
Final question. Do you have any expectations of the show tomorrow?
You mean in terms of the reaction from the audience?
Probably.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. If last night's anything to go by, the audience was very passionate, and also I like the fact that it's a very eclectic audience here. It's men, women, young, older, and that's not always the case with, you know, sometimes countries like Germany and England, for example, my audience tends to be a little bit older, mostly male. So it's great to come to a country where there's as many young girls as there are old guys in Pink Floyd t-shirts. So that's really nice, and I'm sure it'll be similar. I hope it'll be similar tomorrow.
Спасибо вам.
Thank you.
Спасибо.
Я вот смотрел некоторые клипы, и они мне чем-то напомнили советские мультфильмы. Как вы вообще, знакомы ли вы вообще с советским синематографом?
Some of your videos, I think like Drag Queen or Teen, resemble Russian Soviet animation.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Russian movies, or Russian cartoons, or Soviet movies, Soviet cartoons?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, but I'm not the director of those films. I work with a fantastic British animator called Jess Cake, who's worked with Tim Burton and those kind of people. I'm sure she has. Because you know that is her animation is her profession. Me personally, as you can see, I'm quite ignorant of Russian culture. I know some Russian jazz musicians.
But that's a good start.
That's a good start. Yeah, there you go. But I don't know any Russian rock music as well, or animators. I know some Russian movies. Big Tarkovsky fan. Solaris, original Solaris, Stalker. There you go.
Хотите что Что-нибудь еще спросить?
Um,
Мне кажется, Стивен ответит
Yeah,
на вопросы.
I've got many questions, but my English is not so perfect.
I will. Я помогу. Задавайте смелее.
Вы когда-нибудь ездили в московском метро?
Have you been to Moscow Metro, the subway system?
No, I have not. No.
Quite beautiful.
It's very
Is it?
beautiful. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
It's a
Has
trip
all
worth
mosaic
making.
pictures.
Really? Just to go
Yes.
to the subway?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if you say so. Maybe I'll do it.
Come to Mayakovskaya subway station, you can spin a coin there.
Okay.
It's very fun. really.
Okay. I had to, I mean, I've been to Moscow twice before and only for like 24 hours each time, so I haven't really ever had any time. In fact, this is my first ever day off in Moscow today. So maybe today.
Talking about your music videos, with Porcupine Tree you worked a lot with Lasse.
Yeah, Lasse Hoyle, yeah.
I don't know how this is
Lasse
spelled.
Hoyle, yeah.
It was quite an inspiration on me as a photographer.
Oh, really?
Do you have any plans on working with him? Or?
Well, Lasse did the artwork to 4.5. So yes, I mean, Lasse is my primary sort of visual collaborator. So yes, the answer to your question is absolutely. And tomorrow at the show you'll see, although we have the animations that Jess Cope did, we also have a lot of new live action films which Lasse has created.
He's amazing.
He is amazing, yes, and he'd be very happy. He'd love for you to tell him that too.
Well,
He's Danish,
if I have
so
the possibility.
he's Danish, so he's Scandinavian, so he thinks everyone hates him and everything he does sucks.
And what is the process working with Lasse? Do you play him new music, or do you have
Yeah.
a concept, or
We sit down and we talk about the concept, we talk about the lyrics, and usually because we have one of the reasons I think I get on so well with Lasso is we have a very shared visual vocabulary, by which I mean that we kind of love the same kind of movies, and we love the same kind of photography, and it makes it easier because when you're talking with someone like that, like I'll be talking to Lasso and I'll say, I've got this new sign, hey, do you remember that scene in Lost Highway, David Lynch movie? And he's like, yeah, I love that scene. And maybe you have that with someone else too. When you have that kind of shared enthusiasm and it makes it so easy because you understand straight away he gets it. And I know that when he brings me the film he's created, I know that it's exactly what I imagined in my mind. And I had experiences early on where it was a disaster because you'd explain something to someone, you think they understood it, and they bring back something that's completely wrong. And I've never, well, a couple of times, I mean, even in a relationship like that, sometimes it doesn't happen, but very rarely does Lasse make something which isn't pretty much exactly what I had in mind. And that's a very special, very rare thing to find. To find that once in a lifetime is amazing. Yeah, he's a genius, yeah, no doubt. He's a lovely guy as well.
еще вопросы есть у кого-нибудь?
Да.
Хорошо.
Вот когда вы начали заниматься уже сольным проектом, какие, обычно у музыкантов какие-то, меняются мысли, они вдохновляются какой-то другой музыкой, может быть даже не только музыкой, а живописью, фотографией, и в итоге получается нечто необыкновенное, нечто новое.
Понимаете, самого перехода-то не было. Сольная карьера, она началась пораньше.
Коллега, наверное, хочет сказать,
Что вдохновило?
да, что перейдя на сольную карьеру, начали он вдохновляться чем-то новым. Что его...
Он, в принципе,
Правильно,
ответил на это,
Ну
конечно.
да, что вас вдохновило на сольную карьеру?
Are the things that inspire you in your solo career different from the things that inspired you when you were with Porcupine Tree? So, what inspired you to go solo? Two
Well,
questions.
What inspired me to go solo? I mean, there isn't a big difference, to be honest. I mean, I wrote all the songs for Porcupine Tree. I was very much the captain of the ship. The solo records for me are really just a continuation of that. I think the fans see a lot more of a distinction than I do. The only reason was I was not able to do everything I wanted to in a band. Because I'll give you an example. They're not the kind of things that people think, like, oh, he wasn't able to do what he wanted musically. I was. The things I weren't able to do, for example, when you're in a democratic band unit, you are responsible for everyone in that band's income, their financial income. So, for example, now, the show you'll see tomorrow, I have these rather spectacular films, I have very high quality screens, I have quadraphonic sound. All that costs a lot of money. I am able to make a decision and say, you know what, I'm going to go on tour and I'm going to come back at the end of the tour and I'm going to have made no money at all. Because I want to put all the money into the show. I couldn't do that in Porcupine Tree. Because if you go to your other band members and say, hey guys, wouldn't it be great, all the money we're going to make on this tour, if we blow it on these amazing films, these amazing visuals, they'll say, fuck off. I've got to take my wife back some money on this. So, in a sense, that itself was a frustration to me, not being able to perhaps create the spectacle that I wanted to create. And now, being a solo artist, I can hire the best musicians, the best visuals, the best sound system, and the only person I have to answer to for the fact that I make no money at all is me. And that's fine, because I don't need to make any more money. I'm okay, I've made enough money. But I couldn't, do you understand, I couldn't do that in the context of being in a band. So those things itself, which have nothing to do with the music at all, become frustrations. Another example, we got offered to tour in South America. Porcupine Tree never toured in South America. And all the figures came back and it's, we're going to break even. We're not going to make any money, we're going to break even. And the other guys were like, no, we're not going to do it then. I said, we're going to South America, I've always wanted to go to South America. And again, those things are frustrating when, and I understand why for them it was, you know, it was an issue. Of course, it should be an issue. But at that point I thought to myself, okay, I need to stop pretending that I can be in a band. Because I never really planned to be in a band in the first place, you know. Porcupine Tree started as a solo project. First 3 albums was just me. And it gradually became a band, and almost without me intending it to. So in a way I've kind of reverted back to my original plan. I'm a control freak. I'm not really the kind of person that can be in a band, is the truth. It's amazing that I managed to do it for so long.
Ну что, отпустим Стивена, пусть отдыхает.
Можно еще два вопроса?
Да, конечно. Что ж вы молчали?
У меня побольше
вот да, у человека еще больше. What was incredible expanded mindfuck project for you, and would you like to record some more songs for this project?
I don't think so. It was my tribute to krautrock. I mean, I grew up listening to bands like Can, Tangerine Dream, Amon Dultu, Noi, and I loved that music, and I wanted to do a kind of tribute to it, and I think I did it, and it kind of exists in its own little bubble. Like, I can't imagine I would go back to that. No, I'd rather in a way incorporate my love of those aspects into my solo work. You know, aspects of krautrock and things. It was an experiment in genre. So I feel like I've done it really.
My St. Petersburg friends want me to ask you about yesterday problems with
customs.
Yeah, on the border of I think.
Yeah.
Your equipment.
Equipment arrived at 7:15, 15 minutes after the doors to the show opened.
Yeah. And what did you feel about this sad fact? And did you do something as a bonus to your St. Petersburg friends, as a contribution for the delaying of the show?
Did we do something special for them because we had to?
Yes.
We gave them a show. And
Yes, of course,
and
but
honestly, that was. It looked like at one point there wasn't even going to be that. So, listen, I mean, unfortunately, through no fault of ours and through no fault of mine, the show, was running very late. We went on stage at 10 o'clock. We played for 3 hours. That's a lot of work. So the answer to your question is they didn't get anything extra, but the fact they got a show at all, I think, is thanks to my amazing crew who put that show together. And it's not an easy show to put together. If you'll see tomorrow, you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Знаете, еще, если можно, вопрос по поводу последнего мини-альбома.
Do you want to answer that
Sure.
question?
I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Насколько я знаю, ваш последний мини-альбом, в него вошли песни, которые по каким-то причинам не попали в концептуальные альбомы, не вписались в концепцию. Однако он производит, на удивление, целостное впечатление как по музыке, так и по лирике. Так и было задумано, или песни так сложились независимо
А вот
от
девушка
вашего
задавала этот
желания?
вопрос. Вот девушка задавала,
Да?
она вам потом расскажет, что Стивен не ответил.
Прошу прощения, что я проморгал.
Do you still play your songs barefoot? I mean, on the shows. I've been on Porcupine Tree show, and then I wasn't in Russia, so.
Sure.
You're
Yeah. No, I have never worn. I don't think I've ever worn shoes on stage in 25 years. Maybe once because I had to because it was like.
Haven't you ever had any accidents?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
You're always moving there, and I'm like, oh, he'll step on this.
Absolutely. Well, these days I have because I'm touring with a much higher production now. I have a special carpet, and my crew they vacuum it every day. I'm such a rock star. But in the early days, I would come off stage with nails, bits of glass, a syringe once. I had to go to the hospital and have a tetanus because I had a used syringe stuck in my foot. Yeah, exactly. That's the face I made too. Yeah, so I mean, I have paid the price for that. But I just don't feel... And it's not just a thing on stage. At home I would never wear shoes. I'm wearing them now under protest, but I just don't feel comfortable with shoes. I never have since I was a little kid and running around and coming back to my mum with my feet bleeding from having run up and down the street in my bare feet all day. So yes is the answer to your question.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a nice show tomorrow.
Thank you. I will. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Actually, I want to sign my phone card because I'll bring it
Okay.
everywhere with my phone.
All right.
Back, please.
In there?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow
My
at the
pleasure.
show.
Thank you.
And I hope you all break even, learn some.
Okay.
Okay, Rasmi.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you sign mine?
Sure. Green's alright.
Interesting. You're a right musician, great musician.
Thank you very much.
And some critics said that your last album is the wall of the 21st century.
Wow. Okay. That's a compliment.
Yeah,
That's kind of a compliment, isn't it? Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Enjoy the show tomorrow. Assuming you're coming in.
Держать, потому что он не сразу сработал.
Okay.
Спасибо большое.
Спасибо. Nice to meet you. Hello, sir.
Can I have your
Walk your right. Yeah, of course you can. Sir. There we go.
Thank you. And
Photo.
another one question.
Okay.
Can I? It's a joke from my school days when we were sitting on boring lessons with my friends. We draw pictures of everyone
Right.
for 30 seconds. Can I draw your picture your portrait for
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? Just stand still.
What kind of color do you prefer?
Your choice, sir. It's your picture.
I need just one
Okay,
of them. Choose.
red.
Red.
Colour. Okay, nice to meet you. Enjoy the show tomorrow. Enjoy the show, man. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Absolutely. So what do you need me to do? Just sit down or stand?
Yeah, sit down.
Okay, 30 seconds, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. What is going on next door then? Is that a show going on?
Yes, that's the
Showcase?
presentation of the new album of Russian rock band Slot.
Slut.
Slot.
Slot, okay.
Slot, not slut.
Okay. But they're playing live, right?
Yeah, they play live.
They're big, they're quite successful band or
Yeah, they are quite successful in Russia.
like old? You're happy with that? Oh dear. It's not the most flattering picture I've ever seen. Maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
Maybe you will be look like this in 70 years.
Probably, yes. A vision of the future. A cheerful vision of the future. Okay, anyway, we're done. It's
Right. Thank you.